Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to another edition of Being a Sports Talk. So, I was going to break down every single division, but I think that's just too much. You guys are going to see a bunch of breakdowns. So, I'm going to do some team highlights, teams that I'm going to find really interesting this year. And my sleeper team of the year this year, last year, it was the Chicago Bears. I said that they're going to win the NFC North. And this year, I'm not going to go all the way in saying that they're going to win their division, but they are in the same division as the Bears. I'm going all in on the Lions, as you can probably see by the title. Not sure what I'm going to name it. I'll come up with something kind of interesting, but yeah, the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to break down their schedule, and I'm going to tell you why I think that they will make the playoffs. I did make a video earlier in the year saying that the Lions could be really good this year, and I was buying them early, and now I'm really buying them. They got rid of Theo Riddick, but that's because they have enough running backs right now. They brought in a veteran, C.J. Anderson, and now they have Kerryon Johnson, who's going to make major leaps and bounds this year. Matt Stafford is in the second year of his Seahawkian type Patriot-like offense. You could say it doesn't fit him, but if it's going to fit, this is going to be the year. That's why I'm going all in on them. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. But if this is the year, it has to be the year where it works. Last year was the first year. Jim Bob Cooter was their offensive coordinator, but Matt Patricia let the defense win you the games because we have a good defense, and they finally have a good defense. Guys like Hand coming back, the strongest defensive line. You have cornerbacks in Darius Slay. Trey Flowers is injured apparently. You got rid of Ezekiel Ansah, kind of a 1-2 swap. I think that Trey Flowers is a step above what they had in Ezekiel Ansah because he was aging. He wanted too much money. But Trey Flowers, he has a championship mindset. Coming back to the Lions, that's a key move for them. As far as their draft, that's why I kind of jumped off them a little bit for a minute because I'm like, their draft sucks. But their draft doesn't really make a big impact unless you're the Patriots. Unless you need one of the two players and you get your Sony Michel, who's a big guy for, the 1-2 carries you need him in the Super Bowl to, that sort of thing. But TJ Hawkinson is going to be a big part of this offense. He's my candidate for Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to win it, even though it's really rare for tight ends to win Rookie of the Year. I think TJ Hawkinson is going to be a lifeline for him. And Matt Stafford now, it's a Tom Brady system. Name one of their wide receivers. Danny Amendola, anyone? That's their wide receiving core. It's nothing really that intense. I think that they should get a guy like Michael Crabtree to get some experience with this wide receiver core as they get on later in the season. Des Bryant, I think they still need a couple more wide receivers to be successful, although they have some pretty young talent as far as that goes. But I've been kind of jumbled in all my thoughts because I am really excited about this team, if you couldn't really tell. Now, let's recap their last season. Obviously, I was not around then. I was around, but I didn't really pay too much attention to last year as much as the whole storyline with different things. But I do have an idea about their season. So let's just recap their last year's season and see how they can improve this year. So, first of all, their first week of the year, there was that huge debacle against the Jets with Sam Darnold, and that's because, the defense knew every single one of the Lions' plays. That was a bad game, so we're not going to mention that anymore. Then they lost to the 49ers, who had Jimmy Garoppolo. They were looking pretty good last year. They only lost by a field goal. Then they beat the Patriots, and that's because, Matt Patricia knows how the New England offense works because he had to face it in practice all the time. And that was a big game for them. People were like, oh, this is the end of New England. And, so then week 4, they played the Cowboys, barely lost a nail-biter to the Cowboys. And the Cowboys weren't playing that well at this point. Didn't have Amari Cooper yet, but they still had Ezekiel Elliott. And they only lost by a field goal at AT&T Stadium. Then they played the Packers at home. They beat the Packers before their bye week, which is a big deal. I mean, they have the Packers number. Aaron Rodgers wasn't healthy, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. This team still did beat the Bears. Then they had their bye week. They beat the Dolphins, lost to the Seahawks by 2 touchdowns, and this kind of demoralized them because at this point they were 3-4, and then they lost 3 straight. This is their low point in the season. It's gonna be telling. They had a couple of road games here against the Vikings and Bears that they just couldn't win. So division rivalries on the road, not really that good unless it's the Packers where they won that last week. But then they beat the Carolina Panthers. It came down to pretty much the last play, and Cam Newton couldn't make it because he was injured. But the Lions still won it. Then they lost that Thanksgiving game against the Bears when they had Chase Daniel. So overall last year wasn't a good year. They didn't have too many lucky breaks. Their turnover differential was really low. And I think that pops up this year, especially with Matt Patricia's kind of view, with that New England vibe, kind of just don't make mistakes. Let the other team beat you. Don't beat yourself. And if we look at this trend, I really do think that the Lions are going to change that a little bit. So going on to the end of their schedule, they face the Rams, which they lost by 2 touchdowns. And at this point, the Rams were like invincible, so I don't blame them for that. To beat the Cardinals, barely lost to the Bills. And yes, the Bills did come out last season. At the end of the season, they were looking really strong. At the beginning of the year, they were like the laughing stock of the league. And they've been the laughing stock of the league for years, them and the Lions. But they barely lost that game. And then going down the stretch, they lost to the Vikings. And then they beat the Packers. So the key things this year, I would look out for divisional rivalries. They need to win those games on the road, because the Lions are a dome team, and that's a major disadvantage for them. But they're built right now for outdoors. They're really big. They're really huge. They're not that fast. Offensively, they're a little bit fast. But they're kind of built for outdoors. Even though they do play indoors 8 times a year, they are built for outdoors and that type of vibe for their play. But the thing is, I would focus on divisional play outdoors towards the end of the season. Are they going to be able to keep that up, their play up, when they're not playing indoors? And I think they will, because they are a really big team. They are a huge team, and their secondary is fast. I think the secondary takes a big step this year, because they did not do that well last year. Let's take a look at how well their secondary did last year. And I just read an article on how underrated Quandre Diggs is. Many people think he's the most underrated football player in the league, and they're getting him on a cheap deal, just coming off his rookie deal. I'm not too sure about the contract negotiations. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on completely with that, but their secondary is definitely going to be a lot better. This defense is going to ride them, kind of like the Chicago Bears last year. You're coming off, a rough year from your quarterback. I mean, Matthew Stafford has been in the league for a couple years now. He's experienced. I think he's a learner. He can adapt to what the Lions are bringing, as far as the personnel. And I think Matthew Stafford is going to be able to adapt to what the Lions are bringing him as far as like what they expect from him. Not getting in a rhythm and all of a sudden throwing a dart on 3rd down. He's been in the system for a year now. Usually it takes a while. I mean, Kirk Cousins didn't play well in his system last year. We'll see how he rebounds this year, but it takes a year or two to get used to your system. And I think this is the year. Your offensive coordinator is from Seattle. He knows how to work things. He knows the combination between run and pass, because he had to deal with Russell Wilson. Matthew Stafford is underrated athletically, and I think that they do well. I mean, I'm just looking all across the board, some really underrated players and some players that want to prove something. Nobody's talking about them, and that's just in the position that they want to be right now. They're the team that hasn't won anything. They're like the Browns. Like, think about it, the Browns have all these expectations when they get all these good players. The Lions don't have any expectations. They haven't won. The Browns haven't won. But the thing is, the Lions don't have any expectations. If they lose, it'll be fine. They know if they lose, it'll be fine. But they're trying to prove something. The Lions are the Browns are playing scared. They're playing, we have to play well because the yada yada yada. The Lions are just playing to play. They're playing to prove people wrong. And I love this mindset coming into the season. Definitely know what you guys think. And yeah, so I think that the Lions. Let's just break down their schedule, because I think that they have a lot of wins in here. Last year, the Chicago Bears had a really easy schedule. That's why I jumped in their bandwagon. This is not easy as the Chicago Bears was last year, but I think it's manageable. So first off, you start with the Arizona Cardinals. I think that this is a loss, because Arizona is going to have a great offense, and they're going to kind of put the Lions to bay, kind of like what happened with Green Bay last year. Remember, everyone's like, Chicago's coming out, and then Green Bay kind of destroyed them, and everyone's jumped back off the Chicago bandwagon after one half. And yeah, so the Chicago Bears didn't do too well in the first couple games of their season. They did struggle a little bit. Remember that with games against the Patriots. They lost to the Lions. The games like that were frustrating. And then they won some key games down the line because of lucky bounces defensively. And if you have a great defense, if you have a Matt Patricia-like defense who's going to stress turnovers, it's going to be great. So next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and I believe this is their coming out game. It's home against the Chargers. I think they rout the Chargers. This is not even going to be close. Melvin Gordon still may hold out, and I think that this defensive front gives Phillip Rivers fits all day. And even though we see a lot of offense in the beginning of the year, like we're going to see with Arizona, I think that they come back and this is a big win for them. And then they bounce back in week 3. They play the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that they have to win. If they want to be successful, they have to win one of these 2 games before the bye, at Philadelphia or at Kansas City. Kansas City is going to be really hot in the beginning of the year. Tyreek Hill is not suspended. They're going to have to win one of these games, I think, in order to be really, really special this year. And these are the 2 games where it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test. Can this team be special? So I think they're 2-2 going into the bye. A lot of people have them 1-3 or even 0-4 going into the bye, but I think they survive into the bye at week 5. And then they play at Green Bay, primetime game. They've had success at Green Bay over the past couple years. I think Green Bay, they're coming off a pretty rough beginning of their schedule. It starts off at Chicago, then they have the Vikings, Broncos, Eagles, then they have their bye, then they play the Cowboys. So these are going to be some really, really rough games, and I think the Lions come out of this game alive and they win at Green Bay, so they get 3-2. And then all this culminates in Minnesota and Giants. I think that they beat the Giants. Their defensive front gives the Giants kind of porous offensive line struggles. Giants don't really have that many offensive weapons as far as Golden Tate. He's going to be back, but obviously Corey Coleman's going to be out, and I think that the Lions win that game. But they lose the week before against Minnesota, so that means their current record is what? I can't do the math. They are 4-3. Yeah, they're 4-3 going into Oakland and Chicago. These are another 2 big games. You have to win at Oakland. Oakland has not too much of a good pass rush. The Lions' offensive line, I think, comes into shape too, so that Matt Stafford has some time to throw. The Oakland secondary is a little better than last year, but I still think the Lions are the better team, and they end up winning this game at Oakland. And then they play the Chicago Bears. Obviously, another big game. I think they lose this game. So they're 5-4 going into November 17th game at Dallas. The reason why I have them losing against Chicago kind of has, their schedule is really light at this point. I think the Lions are just rounding off wins, and they get a little humbled this game. Chicago just has a better defensive front. They give the Lions offensive line fits. Matt Nagy knows how to circumvent the Lions. The Lions defense, we saw that for the past couple of games. Even with Chase Daniel, they did really, really well against the Lions defense. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys and Washington. I think they win both these games. Because coming off that loss against Chicago, they see that they have a chance in this division, and they realize that they have to win. I think Dallas at this point, I think there's turmoil. I think that there's an accident waiting to happen, and November comes around, and they either are going to be really great and turn the page, or they're going to stink, and I think they're going to start stinking. They're going to be like 9-7, because whenever the expectations are the highest, they go the lowest, and I think that Dallas loses this game. Then at Washington, I think they're the better team. You're going to play a rookie quarterback probably at this point. Dwayne Haskins will be starting. That defense is really good, but I don't think Dwayne Haskins has enough. And then you play at the Bears on a short week. The Bears are coming off just a brutal couple of games. They're going to play the Giants, but they're coming off a game. I forget who they play on the Sunday before, but I think it's like Green Bay, or the Vikings. That's going to be a brutal, ugly game. And then they're going to have to come a short week at Lions. I think that the Lions win this game. And that means that they're 7-4. Just like that, the Lions are 7-4 going into December. And then their schedule lines up a little bit. You play at Minnesota with that a little extended bye. I think they could win this game, but let's say they lose. So they're 8-5. And then they play at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to be tanking at this point. Their defense is pretty strong with their pass rush. Jason Pierre-Paul will probably be back by then, but I think the Lions take it. Then at Denver, I think that's a loss. And then Green Bay, I think that they win, and they end up 10-6, and they win the division at 10-6. So let me know what you guys think, how the Lions going to do this year. And but obviously the Lions have had struggles over the past couple of years. By past couple of years, I mean their entire franchise with winning games when it counts and winning games in the playoffs. They've only had one playoff victory in the past 62 years. So when they get to the playoffs, it's definitely going to be a huge hurdle to actually make it to the next round and advance. I don't think they do. I think their ceiling is 10-6, but I think they will reach their ceiling. Well, probably 11-5 is their ceiling if everything goes right. And then their floor, I think they can be a 5-11 team again, but they've shown signs over the past couple years that they're starting to be a little different. They won games in Green Bay last year. They've won big games over the past couple years that it's just like, oh yeah, no, they shouldn't have won that. And it looks like things are changing. I'm buying them, and if I'm wrong, say I'm wrong, and we'll laugh at this video a year from now or 8 months from now when the season's over and the Lions are 4-12 and they're the number 2 overall pick and they move off Matt Stafford. But I think that the Lions are going to be the sleeper team this year. They have a chance to win the NFC North. And I'm probably going to clickbait the title and saying why the Lions are going to win the NFC North. But realistically, I think they get into a 1 or 2 wild card. It's going to be them and the Saints, so the 2 wild cards. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like rating. Way down there, please comment, favorite, and subscribe if you haven't already. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.